Let's move on and talk to Samuel in Maine.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Samuel, hey,
Yes.
you're live.
Oh,
with
I just wanted to say. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say I'm a fan of Mandisa. I saw tons of her videos last night, so I'm a fan of her.
It
Oh,
says
thank you,
Samuel's
Samuel.
is theist as well. Samuel's a believer. So
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm also African American, so I kind of relate to a lot of things that you say in your videos.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, it
Uh,
is important to understand where we are coming from as people of color and Black folks. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that no, I love that.
yeah,
You know, people ask, you know, why intersectionality? You know, why Black non-believers? You know, I see it in the chat. This is why, because we relate to each other. We need to, you know, build those communities, and often those communities are built where we intersect and where we have multiple things in common. I don't have a lot in common with other atheists who believe in crystal healing, and, you know, but the more we, you know, find those commonalities, the more we can build and grow together. So sorry, I just interjected myself on top of a thing, but I just saw it way too much in the chat and I wanted to jump on that. Samuel, you wanted to talk about hypocrisy in church. What specifically?
well, I would say the two main things I wanted to talk about is like really sex, and mostly as far as, you know, between men and women and the LGBT community, because oftentimes you'll hear pastors who they'll criticize, for example, people who are gay, and I don't really agree with that because they tend to like demonize people who are gay. Oftentimes they do. Not all churches do this, but some do. And at the same time, the pastor's caught either with a boy or a girl or a woman, and people will forgive that pastor and still demonize gay people. And I have a problem with that because I find that really as hypocrisy to me.
I don't know if you're going to hear a whole lot of pushback from us.
Right. Absolutely.
I think the only thing that I would point out to you, Samuel, is, you know, and we kind of let it slide with Kathy, and that's because we had other parts of the conversation we were addressing. We're not always able to pick everything through, but this idea of being Christ-like it can be dangerous. And you might think, okay, Eric, that's really silly. Why? Well, because the other side of that would be, if somebody is not Christ-like or is not a believer, then they cannot have those qualities. So if you say, okay, being a good person makes you more Christian, then that means that Christianity has just being a good person locked down. Like, you couldn't be good without God. And therein,
I actually don't accept. Well, I'm sorry.
No,
I
go
don't
ahead.
accept that proposition. That I don't really accept the proposition that if you're not a Christian, you can't be a moral person. For example,
Good.
you know,
Now, well,
your co-host,
Mhm.
your co-host Mandisa, for example, I don't think she's an immoral person. I mean, as far as theism is for me, it's more just from my perspective: does a God exist or not? I mean, morals to me are a different subject.
I agree, and it sounds like the reason it's a different subject for you is the same reason it's a different subject for me, and that's because you divorced morality from religiosity, and that's important. The best you can be is amoral and not affected by moral statements, you know, moral pronouncements in the Bible. I would argue that it is hard to remain amoral, and you could actually be pushed into immoral behavior if you are pointing out and using, you know, different scriptures to justify bigotry. So at the most charitable we can be, the best you can be as a Christian, because you're a Christian, is amoral, meaning no moral leaning at all. But
Right. And also, I'm sorry if I may, Eric,
no, go for it.
the church is certainly a breeding ground for hypocrisy because, for one, um, especially the Judeo-Christian religions, you know, the Catholic Church and the Christian churches have been in power for so long. And when you have institutions that govern itself ultimately by fear and guilt, that ends up being a very, very vicious and brutal cycle because, for one, it robs people of a sense of their humanity. Um, we now see that yes, the church and Christianity in particular, and I know Islam as well, is very dogmatic about sex and sexuality. And at the same time, what it does, especially for religious leaders who have been raised in these institutions and also who have been elevated to positions of power and stature and respectability, meaning that they're supposedly these gatekeepers of morality, so they have to keep preaching it, even if they're wrestling with it. And this is where you see the number of these pastors and leaders who preach about family values and morality. They get caught with mistresses, or they get caught in these what is considered what would be considered immoral positions, and also those who are preaching or who are railing against the LGBTQ community. We can see this in the late Bishop Eddie Long, who was in Georgia here, who led a march or a protest against same-sex unions, and yet what the scandal came out that he was carrying on relations with young men in his church. So this is unfortunately a part of a vicious cycle that we see occurring in many of these institutions. And of course, as more people leave because they're seeing the hypocrisy here, and the fact that most people are expected not to question that, right? You're just supposed to go along with it no matter what. If the leader gets caught, then it's like, oh well, he's still a human being. But yet, if it's a regular member or parishioner, then they're demonized or they're outcast. And yes, that is an unfortunate part of the community aspect, and a harm that churches, I won't say all, but many churches and religious institutions have absolutely been responsible for. And these are things that we absolutely should continue to address.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to ask, or is that just kind of what you wanted to?
Well, I guess I was just going to wrap this up by basically saying that, as far as say, hypocrisy goes, because for example, I've also listened to the Atheist Experience show, and I've heard Matt Dillahunty talk about slavery in different areas and things like that. And for the most part, I would say that he's correct on a lot of things that he says. I think part of the issue, with oftentimes, other Christians, even my parents, is that, they don't accept any, say, legit criticism, when it comes to the Bible. From my perspective, as far as God is concerned, even if a God exists and he's good, I don't think that necessarily that he's incapable of making zero mistakes at all. But for a lot of Christians, they don't want to even accept the possibility that, maybe the God of the Bible, even if he's real, he could have possibly made mistakes, or maybe he's not 100% perfect above everybody else.
So there's actually an entire subset of people who leave fundamentalist Christian religions and move to kind of more spacey, more ambiguous religious kind of leanings that can include that. I know it may sound mean, but try to avoid that branch on your way down. Because I've seen plenty of people hit that branch on the way down. And how about this? If you do, give us a call. That said, Samuel?
Honestly, I don't think I would go down it. Honestly, if I was going to leave theism, I probably would just become an atheist. I don't think I would try to jump to another branch, because, in my opinion, if, say, I don't accept, for example, theism, I would just become an atheist, because, as Matt Dillahunty explained, it's just a lack of belief. Really. So until a God is concretely proven to me, I probably would just end up becoming an atheist. No middle ground really for me.
Well, so long as you're using good reasoning, that's the most important thing. If you are practicing skepticism, if you are engaging with the world around you in an honest, open way that is able to go, hey, I might be wrong about X, Y, and Z, but I want to follow the evidence where it leads us. That's where we want you to go. And I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for watching these shows.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Samuel, if I may add something, being an atheist doesn't mean that we have come to definite conclusions on anything. There are plenty of times where we say we don't know. We continuously look for answers. It is an ongoing process. We don't just stop with, with our lack of belief in God. So I think that for many believers or people who may be doubting and questioning, I think that might be the thing that stops them is that, well, that's just it, and it isn't. It's a new beginning. It's a way for you to start exploring more about what you may have been discouraged from learning about previously and exploring before. It can take you down just this wonderful avenue of information, which at times can be overwhelming, but it's a start. It's a good start for you, improving on your skepticism and your education and your information and learning, and also dialogue,
Yeah.
because that's important as well.
And take I each of those, as you're listing them, Mandisa, I'm thinking each of those as a baby step.
Mhm.
And I just want to
Yes.
use those as baby steps. Samuel, you don't need to jump directly out because you want to have good foundation under you for the reasons that you're accepting things around you. And yeah, those are perfect baby steps. But that said, Samuel, thank you for calling in.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Yeah, those I can't tell you how many people have messaged and been like, I was a, hardcore Christian and I saw 2 episodes of Talk Heathen and now I'm an atheist. And it's like,
Like,
oh
are
no.
you sure? I mean, it's great. I mean, right, right. I think, yeah,
Yeah, but because then they
right.
message 2 weeks after that and say, never mind, I'm a Christian again. It's like, okay, we need to have good reasons for what we believe. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not
Absolutely.
telling you what to
I
think.
am not I am not in favor of atheism becoming trendy, because it is not something that is going to be popular, or it isn't the thing to do for the moment. Um, like you said, there needs to be a good foundation for why you don't believe. And if those people become, or if they choose to openly identify as atheists, or they're comfortable within 2 episodes based on the skepticism they already had, then great. But if it is an emotional, oh, I'm atheist
I'm
because,
angry at
I
God.
have an issue with religion. Yes, I'm angry at God, or I'm angry at my pastor and such. Many of us who are community leaders would actually, try to encourage, like, are you really sure? We recommend resources for to actually come to terms with that, because that's what they may need.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm so glad we're on the same page about that. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm with you. So before we move into the next call, I want to thank our patrons. It's funny, I was actually loading up the patrons, and I got the message from our producers saying, "Hey, now's a good time for Patreon. We are synced. We're feeling good. It is that time of the episode where we thank our top 5 patrons. Our top 5 patrons this week are Eric Tweet, CJ Dennis, Dingleberry Jackson, Desert Heathen, and Bethany P. And we have 2 more. We usually just read our top 5, but Mandy's our 6th patron. Their name is Marry Me V, which I think is hilarious. So special shout out to Marry Me V. And then next is
Aw.
Balaam's Donkey. So
Oh my gosh.
thank you not just to our top patrons, but to all of our patrons. It sincerely helps. What we're doing costs money, and we want to use that to the best of our ability to push this mission forward. So if you like what we do and you want to support us, consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. That is not the only way you can support us. We're at 81,000 subscribers. Let's get to 100,000. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and share this out, because the more people see it, the more we can grow. And we want to get in front of more eyeballs. So share this out as well, please.